Hello and welcome. If you're a new viewer, my name is Carota, and this, is episode 2 of my podcast where I discuss my crochet projects, my art quilting that I do occasionally, and and learning to knit, and other little supportive expressions of creativity. So if you're a returning viewer, I really appreciate you coming back for more. Either you liked what you saw or you're a glutton for punishment. I don't know. But I do appreciate you coming back. You might want to consider hitting the subscribe button, and that way you can be updated as to when I do new episodes, or and you don't have to keep checking on me. But I plan to do it every 2.5 weeks. There's a lot to this. Getting the lighting right. I'm up in my dining room on my tablet, which only records for about 30 minutes tops. So this is going to be a straight unedited version, and I hope it goes well. If not, I'll do better next time. But I want to go ahead and get started. I mentioned at the pilot episode that I was getting ready to learn to knit, and I had enrolled in a class on Craftsy, and I was also following the channel One Virtuous Woman here on YouTube. She's doing a series called Knit It to Fit It, where she's teaching English style and continental knitting. And I started that Sunday morning. Oh, this is Thursday, September 29th. And I woke up this past Sunday at 4 a.m. and couldn't go back to sleep. And so I decided to go ahead and get my knitting groove on to start it. So that's what I did all day Sunday. I mean, literally pretty much all day. And want to see my progress? That's how much I accomplished. Well, kind of not quite. I've become the queen of cast on, because what I did all day Sunday was to learn to cast on and learn the knit stitch. And when I first started out, I would drop tons of stitches and just take it all out and start all over from casting on to knitting rows of the knit stitch. Discover I dropped stitches, start all over and over and over. Just kept doing that all day. And this time I decided just to keep going, even though I think right through here maybe a dropped stitch or so. I think. I'm not really sure what I'm looking at other than a jaggedy stitch work right there. And I'm using these metal or aluminum knitting needles that you can find in any big box store. US size 10. I think that's 6.0 millimeters. And the yarn that I'm using is yarn B-E-E, which I believe is a Hobby Lobby brand yarn. And this is the same yarn that I'm using for my grandson's sweater, which is performing beautifully with the crochet hook. But these knitting needles, because of the point, it is very, very splitty yarn to knit with. And so I had read about that some yarns were better to knit with and some were better to crochet with, and I guess this is an example of that. Because like I said, in the crochet hook, this yarn B yarn, is just behaving beautifully, and I'm having all kinds of splitting issues with it. But I've learned to work around it as I have improved in my knit stitching. And I'm learning continental style knitting, and I went with that because Continental is less stress on the hands, and you feed the yarn from the left side, which I'm already accustomed to because of crochet, and so I decided to go with that. And One Virtuous Woman is she's teaching both English style knitting and the Continental as well. And but I'm not really going to fool with the English style knitting. It just felt too awkward to run the yarn through my right hand. So and she's also doing a series called Past to Present, I think, that is her teaching crochet. So if you're really interested in learning either one of those, I think you really should check her out. It's pretty interesting. And if I had known about her doing that, I probably wouldn't have signed up for the Craftsy class. So, but the one thing about Craftsy class, it's at my own pace, and I can watch all of them, whereas she's releasing a video like every week or every other week. So the Craftsy class, I am using circular needles, and this is size 5.0 millimeters, and the brand is Chiagu bamboo needles, and I really like them so far. Using 100% wool yarn, and the brand is called Lettlopi, Lettlopi. It's a wool from Iceland. It's pretty scratchy, but it might soften up with like a wool soak, wash. But this is, and these are 32-inch circulars, and these are my stitches. Again, I just cast on, knit a few rounds, discover I had tons of drop stitches, pull it all out and start over. So, like I said, I've become the queen of cast on, if nothing else. My rhythm has finally picked up with the knit stitch, but it's still slow going. That's it. And I can't tell if I'm loose knitting or tight knitting. When I first started, I was really gripping these needles like with a death grip on them, and then I decided just to kind of do some relaxation exercises by rolling my shoulders and my neck and just kind of holding them firm but loosely, just kind of letting them almost rest in my hands. And these needles I bought at my local yarn store, as well as these tips, which I think are just the cutest thing. I guess it helps to keep the stitches on as well as protect the tips of your of the knitting needles. So that's my progress, and probably when I finish this video, I'll go on in my Craftsy class and learn what's next. The only thing about this Craftsy class, it's called Introduction, I think, to Continental Knitting, or Learning to Continental Knit. And it was on sale for a really good price. I think it was like $14.99. So for $15, I'm pretty happy that I think I get 4 or maybe 5 classes out of it. And with Craftsy classes, you have them for life. So that's pretty cool. So I was saying about the Craftsy class, she didn't go into cast on. So even though there's a reference there for learning to cast on, she didn't actually teach it. Whereas One Virtuous Woman did teach the cast on, short tail cast on method is what she taught. So I did learn that, and which was very, very helpful. So So that's the only thing. You do need to have some prior knowledge, or at least learn to cast on before you start that particular class. And so that's it. And I'm about ready to start my first knitted project. I'm going to do just a neckerchief with some of the yarn that I previously, in my stash, that I received in a yarn box. And so I'm going to try that. And hopefully, I doubt if I'll have it finished by the next video, but at least I probably will have some progress on it. And hopefully I know enough to be able to work at least one project. So that's where I hope to be in 2.5 weeks. And last episode I showed my grandson's sweater, which I said was the first sweater I've ever started. But which technically I think that's true, because I don't think a shrug really qualifies as a sweater. But I have this made, which is a previously made shrug, but it looks like a sweater in that it has substantial decreases to form the sleeves. And this is crochet work. And after the rectangle gets made and you seam the arms, the sleeves, then you go back in and add the ribbing that goes all the way around the edge. And although I cannot recall the name and designer of this shrug, it is on my Ravelry page, and I'll list all my social media stuff at the end of this. But it is listed there, which I guess I should have had that before I started that. And this is actually for one of my nieces, which I am going to hopefully get in the mail this weekend. I promised Tanika you're going to get it before winter. But actually, I guess you can use it now that it's turned cool here. I'm coming at you here in Louisville, Kentucky. And I think yesterday it barely got above 80. So we're having a little bit cooler nights, and even cooler during the day. I am not a fan of winter, not a fan at all of winter. If you've been reading my blog for longer than a year, have gone through winter with me on my blog, you pretty much know that. Although last winter my goal was not to say how much I hate winter, not to recognize it out loud, because even though this is my home, born and raised, I have just never grown accustomed to winter. I can't imagine living in any place where the winter season is longer than the one we have here. I just cannot. I can't deal with it. But I have a plan this winter to be able to help me get through it. And I'll, when I talk about my stash acquisitions, which I think I'm ready to do. Yeah, I am. I'll share what that plan is. One of the yarns that I bought, I'll go ahead and move into the yarns and purchases that I made during the month of September. And a few days ago, somebody, and before I say this, my daughter is fine. She is wonderful. The driver of the other car is wonderful, but someone ran a stop sign and hit my daughter while she was driving. Hit the car, and it's totally out of commission. So with that said, I'm not sure how that's going to affect us. So I'm already kind of, everything is on hold. So I hope to, be able to focus for October and stay on track. And I don't see any reason why I shouldn't, but that is in the back of my mind as I'm kind of doing this. But everything is fine, and I'm, trust in God. I've seen worse than this, and long as there are no fatalities, no serious injuries, we're okay. You know what I'm saying? Good day to be above board, right? Okay. So, but for September, I got on the Karen Cakes bandwagon, and these are carried, I think, only at Michael's. They may branch out later, but Michael's craft stores are the ones that debuted the Karen Cakes in September or late August. And I bought 2 of these. There are 383 yards of yarn in this. And I bought 2 of them to make my granddaughter, who's age 6, a cardigan. When I finish Carter's sweater, my grandson's sweater, I'm going to start on a cardigan for her. And then after that, I have another grandson who's 10. I'm going to make him a sweater, but not with this. So that was one. And I don't know, this is like 80% acrylic and 20% wool. And it's extremely soft. So I would recommend, just based on what I feel now, excuse me, I would recommend it. It is a worsted weight yarn. Yeah, so if softness is an issue, yeah. And I got, Michael's, you can always get, which I had, a coupon, and they were running it on sale on top of that. So I thought it was a pretty good deal. And then the other yarn I picked up from Michael's is this Loops and Thread, which I believe is a Michael's brand. And from the last podcast, when I was talking about the first lace weight wrap or scarf that I started, was for a girlfriend of 30-something years, and only to find out that she is allergic to wool. And so I went and picked her out. This is 100% acrylic. It's 120 yards, bulky weight, and it has all these jewel tones of purples and blues and greens and grays and browns, and just really pretty colors. So I bought 4 skeins of this, and I plan on making her a cowl, one of those really long cowls that you can wrap about 2 or 3 times with it. And so that is that. And not sure when I'm going to get started on this. It's just only so much time, right? And then I picked up another. What did I do with it? Oh, here it is. Chia Goo circular needles, and this is a size 5 or 3.75 millimeters, and another Chia Goo bamboo 32-inch circular. And I'm not sure, I mean, I can understand that you need certain circulars to be longer than others, depending on how many threads you have to, how many loops will be on a needle. But I don't know the reasons why you would get some circulars that are longer than others in terms of the actual needle part, not the connector part. What's the advantage of having interchangeables over non-interchangeables? I do like these bamboo. I do have more control with them. That is one of the things that the woman at the local yarn store advised me, since I was learning to knit, that I would have less slippage with, that sounded odd, but less slipping with the bamboo needles than with the aluminum or metal ones. So, but if you can give me some pointers, maybe, I would appreciate that, because what's the most common? I don't really like working with bulky weight yarn. It's not my favorite. I prefer anything from lace weight to worsted. There's a certain kinds of needles that I need to be looking at over one of another kind. So any pointers on what to get, what to buy, why would be really helpful. Now, my plan for getting through the winter, and I just got off the phone before starting this with my girl, Therese. Hi, Therese. Discussing that. When she took me early part of September to a local yarn shop in the next county over, which I had known about. I just had never been there. And so she took me out there. And I went out there, you know, really just intending to sit and stitch. And no intentions of buying. But when I saw these, they just kind of jumped out at me. But they're called Wonderland yarns. It says Pigments of Imagination. Mad Hatter, sport weight, 86 yards per 1 ounce skein. And there are 5 skeins in here. And this bottom one is a real dark plum. But I think the colors are showing fairly okay. This looks a little bit more yellowish, and it's really a chartreuse. Yeah, but I think the rest of the colors seem to be true to likeness. Wonderland yarns. So, it's machine washable. Code. But it suggests hand wash in cold water and lay flat to dry. So, and this is a dyed and spun in the U.S. 100% superwash merino. Now, when I saw this, I thought, again, you buy yarns because they speak to you. But I had no idea what I was really going to make with it. Oh, where's my other one? And then I thought, you know what? I would like something very bright and cheery. So I picked this to go with these colors. And you really can't see how deeply orange. I don't think the camera is really picking this up really good. It's a very rich orange. And it really speaks to me. And unfortunately, I've lost the label, so I can't even tell you what it is. But I would say it has a little bit of silk in it, maybe. It's just a little. But it's a beautiful yarn. And so this is my plan to get through winter. I thought I would keep these bright colors in front of me. And most of the time, I'm not a bright colored kind of chick. When I make my art quilts, I really prefer working with a few colors or muted tones. This is not me, generally. But I thought I am going to spend, probably at the first frost, I'm going to cast on. The first frost, I'm going to cast something on. I want it to be a shawl, something I can wrap myself in. And I don't know how long it's going to take me. I'm not sure if I'm going to knit it or crochet it. But I absolutely love this. And I thought maybe this will make getting through winter. I'm not going to say I'm going to like it any better, but maybe can make it a little bit more or less harsh. If there's such a thing as a less harsh winter. Surely there is. I'm going to believe that there is. And this is part of the plan of making it less harsh. So this is a total of about 800 yards. If I remember, this is a little over 400. And I want to do something to tie all of these. This is going to be the main carrier that ties all of these high contrasting colors together. I love it. If you got a pattern that you think would be befitting for these beautiful yarns, let me know, excuse me, by commenting below in the little comments. I got hiccups. Okay, in the comment section below, just let me know. I am looking for something that has a pow factor. Of course, anything I do in these colors is going to be a pow factor, but just if you have a pattern, I would love to take a look at patterns if I can mix all of this up. So that's it. I have some patterns that I'm getting ready to start, and I was going to share, but I think I'll just wait till I have made some progress on them, and then hopefully in the next video you'll see some progress and some completed works from my last works in progress that I showed in my pilot episode. So today I'm going to work through my Craftsy class, and I hope to actually get into my garage to do some dyeing. I dye my fabrics for my art quilts, and I have not dyed in 2 years. I have not dyed any fabric in 2 years. Of course, last year was a total wipeout because I was recovering from breast cancer. So, but even this year, it's just I haven't found the time to really stand still long enough and concentrate. Usually when I get into a mode where I'm dyeing fabric or screen printing on fabric or laminating fabric, I'm fixed on it for a period of time, like a couple of weeks at least. So before it gets too cold to be outside, I want to at least dabble a little bit with some dyeing of my fabrics. I do have an art quilt that I'm in the process of making. I'm just still in the design processes, and maybe I can share a little bit next time about what that looks like for me. So until then, that's all. I think I'm exactly under 30 minutes, so, or a few minutes under 30 minutes. So thank you for dropping by and watching episode 2. See you in 10 to 15 days.